Not only people but also animals have become hostages of the war in Ukraine. Hundreds of pets have found themselves in critical conditions on the verge of survival due to the death of their owners. Some animals were abandoned by their owners in their haste to leave the dangerous territories. Recently, Ukrainians were touched by the story of rescue of a cat that spent almost a month in a destroyed house in Borodyanka near the Ukrainian capital. Thanks to animal volunteers, there are many such cases with happy endings. Good people find good people to save destitute animals. 14 evacuated animals from Kharkiv were received by volunteer Anastasia Trotsyuk from Sokol, Lviv region. Among them are rabbits, cats, and dogs. She temporarily sheltered 5 dogs and 4 cats at her place, while the rest were put in the care of friends. The animals are waiting for new owners. She saw a post by a Kharkiv volunteer that the animals needed to be evacuated. She immediately found support from the girls she knew. Each of them took home 1 animal, some 2, some 3. The owners of the first batch of evacuated animals are no longer alive. In the second batch, the owners simply left them in the entrances. The third batch of animals were left in the apartment, which was then hit by a shell, says Anastasia. This woman has been engaged in animal volunteering for 6 years. Kharkiv volunteers rescued animals and organized delivery to the city of Lviv. From there, Anastasia took them back to her home. There is a bus coming from Kharkiv, which is paid for by volunteers, fueled and helped financially. This volunteer was also offered evacuation, but she says that the animals in her hometown need it more. Anastasia continues. The first dogs that arrived in Kharkiv hid in the basement for about 2 weeks and were emaciated. With inflamed eyes, ears, one had a tumor. These are animals in which we have invested a lot of time, effort, money, says Anastasia. All the animals were given medical care. Now they have been operated on, vaccinated, and treated. The dogs that were evacuated didn't understand Ukrainian at first. They didn't know what you wanted from them or what you were telling them. They were very afraid of sirens. If you walk outside and stand on a dry stick and it cracks, these dogs are pressed straight into the ground and shake for a very long time. Many animals had to be renamed because their names were not known. So they were called something like this: Lyalia for Yunia, because she snores. These are pretty funny names for dogs. All animals get used to new names. It was not possible to keep all the animals because, in addition to the evacuated from the city of Kharkov, Anastasia has 3 dogs and 3 cats of her own living in a 2-room apartment. To keep an animal, you have to have enough time for each one. She doesn't have it. When I go to pick up an animal, I disappear for the whole day. Also, there are many other things to do, Anastasia says. Her cats and dogs don't have the care they would have if they were the only ones in the family. I always put the animals' interests before my own, she says. Anastasia and other volunteers advertise that they are looking for owners for Kharkov animals. I have invested my soul and time in each animal that I have now. So I definitely want them to live in good conditions, better than they do now. We will not return the animals to the people who abandoned them. 1 dog has already found a family, the rest are still waiting for new owners. Just giving an animal to someone is not an option. People have to be interviewed. They have to take pictures of their conditions. On the street, we do not adopt animals, only with living in a house or apartment. All wards are sterilized, vaccinated. Potential owners are voiced true indicators on the health of animals, on the character and behavior. There are many people willing to take them. We are looking for the best conditions, says Anastasia. Dmitry Bendikov, a Kiev resident, took in an African ornamental hedgehog taken from a nursery in occupied Melitopol. He had been dreaming of getting a hedgehog for 5 years and had been following the nursery in Melitopol. At the beginning of April, it turned out that the animals had been taken out of the war zone. They had to be placed in families. I decided that it was a great opportunity to take a hedgehog, because before I was scared of the responsibility for the animal. But now I thought, when else but now, says Dmitry. The owner of the nursery took 15 hedgehogs from Melitopol to the city of Dnipro. She advertised that the animals could be taken home for free. There were 2 hedgehogs in the nursery. The first one went to Lviv, and the second one was supposed to be delivered to Hungary. But something there they broke down, and I wrote as a spare person ready to take the hedgehog. The hedgehog was sent to me from Dnipro by passenger bus. When I picked him up, I saw that other people were also sent some animals, says the man. Dmitry created the necessary living conditions for the hedgehog. He bought a special wheel because if it is not trained, the animal quickly gains weight, and this is harmful to its health. Bought even a small ball, but so far does not like it very much, but in the wheel runs. Ideally, the hedgehog requires a box showcase. I don't have one yet. I feed him mixed dog and cat food and also give him frozen insects. It is important for African hedgehogs to maintain a temperature regime. I bought him a heater because at a temperature below 24 degrees, such animals become uncomfortable. They can start sneezing. He says that he has not yet counted how much it costs to keep a hedgehog, but says that you cannot get a hedgehog when there are financial difficulties. Exotic animals are more difficult to deal with than cats or dogs. Because there are not enough veterinarians, sometimes they need rare vitamins that we don't have in our country. But hedgehogs are basically hermits. They can safely live without a mate. The perfect place for it is in a sweater pocket. The hedgehog uses all its power to spin the wheel. But he's still very young. He's only 3 months old. He fits comfortably in the palm of your hand. He likes to sleep on his side or on your lap. He sleeps most of the day. He eats once a day. He gets full and then runs around the box, constantly changing his location. It is even difficult to photograph him because he is always running around. He often snorts and protests when I touch his territory. When he's in a good mood, he doesn't even resist. And they are much softer than our white-breasted European hedgehogs. You can pet him, the man says, but if he's in a bad mood, he becomes a cold weapon. He snorts menacingly, showing his indignation. Dmitry keeps in touch with the owner of the kennel and periodically consults on the conditions of the hedgehog. Since the onset of the full-scale conflict, volunteers from the Katropolis in Kiev have evacuated 65 cats to Europe to save them from the turmoil of war. For over 12 years, these feline friends were under the care of the public organization, Nature Above All. Initially, activists initiated the Katropolis project to address the issue of an excessive population of cats at the Kiev Zoo. These cats were sterilized and socialized, and they enjoyed dignified living conditions. The project gained popularity among Kiev residents and visitors, especially families with children. When the full-scale conflict erupted, then our foreign colleagues proposed evacuating the cats to Europe. We agreed, says Angelina Yar, the chairperson of the Nature Above All organization and the curator of the Katropolis project. Volunteers organized the transportation of the cats to Poland, and it was not an easy journey. In the middle of March, the country was flooded with a massive flow of refugees. The roads were very difficult to pass. Because of the situation in Ukraine, it was very difficult to find a driver who would agree to transport so many animals. It was very difficult and time-consuming. Eventually a solution was found, but it cost 30,000 hryvnias. In addition, there were concerns about how the cats would pass through customs, as they had not had their annual vaccinations. Nevertheless, the media showed touching footage of Europeans welcoming our citizens and their pets without any documents. Our foreign colleagues assured us that vaccinations were not required. However, on the way to the bus, we learned that rabies vaccination and microchipping are mandatory. We had to travel to Rivne to get vaccinated, which cost us an additional 30,000 hryvnias. Due to the unforeseen delay, we paid the driver another 10,000 hryvnias. It is safe to say that when people talk about something free and selfless, they are just living in illusions, Angelina added. At the border, only 5 cats per adult were allowed, but they had only 2 volunteers and a driver to accompany 65 cats. Nevertheless, European volunteers met them halfway, taking some cats under their care. Subsequently, the animals were placed under quarantine, incurring an expense of 1,500 euros. People from Germany, Poland, the Czech Republic, Austria, and Belgium swiftly took in the cats. The best cats, those that were fluffy and had good coloration, were chosen for evacuation. All the cats had been socialized and sterilized. Abroad, there is a law that states that a person relinquishing an animal to a shelter loses all connections to it. However, they scrutinize and examine those who adopt the animals within the first year. They believe that their cats are well taken care of there. Currently, Katropolis still houses around 50 cats, and locals continue to bring new animals. Last week, our soldiers brought us 2 cats who hadn't eaten in 2 weeks. They haven't fully recovered yet. We're working with them, and they're starting to understand that they are loved. There's also a cat from Severodonetsk in our care. Her owner comes to visit and takes her for walks. The landlord of the apartment that a refugee is renting doesn't allow pets. Someone left another kitten at a church, and it was sick. The parishioners treated it and brought it to us. Recently, we received 3 more kittens. One of them has a severe illness that's affecting its eyes. We were able to treat them promptly, but one of the little ones may remain blind, Angelina shares. Volunteers accept charitable donations to support the cats. Working with these animals can be demanding since each cat requires significant attention, particularly the sick kittens. There aren't many people who regularly come to work at Katropolis. Furthermore, there isn't enough space for quarantine. Therefore, they urge Kiev residents not to abandon cats, but instead to adopt them from their shelter.